My name is Claude Burfect, and I am the first Vice President of the Seattle King County NAACP. Where do I start? Well, back in 1957, as a sophomore in high school, my uncle, Percy Murphy Griffin, came to me and my sister and asked if we would do voter registration in our neighborhood. In Louisiana, and I am originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, what happened at that time was Jim Crow. Now, Jim Crow, I thought when I was a young kid was a man, but Jim Crow was a system at that time. And for black people, we had to do what was called a literacy test. So what my sister and I did was we would go to neighborhoods and knock on doors to all the black folks in that community to sit them down, and we would teach them. As a 10th grader, and she was in 12th grade, we would teach them how to take the literacy test. It was a 50-question test that only black people in the state of Louisiana, or as a matter of fact, in the South, had to take this literacy test. We done that, and as a matter of fact, we got 105 people in a month registered to vote. Now, can you imagine? That was just within a month, and we continued this for over a year to get people registered to vote. From there, I became more of, I would say, a militant, because during that time we had the civil rights movement. Then I later on became a member of CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, where James Farmer was the president of CORE. The NAACP and CORE got together, they partnered where we began to demonstrate. And we did rallies, demonstrations, sit-ins, and oh boy, I don't know how many times I was arrested and thrown in jail. I was bitten by dogs, I was hosed, I was hit in the head with, we call it a billet at that time, and as a matter of fact, fractured my left skull. From the demonstrations, my church at that time, and my uncle, Percy Murphy Griffin, who was the pastor of St. John's Church out in Phoenix, Louisiana, got together with Reverend Vaughn from New Orleans at my church, and we decided to do the March on Washington back in 1963. At the March on Washington, I got to meet quite a few celebrities, I call. We had Coleman Young, which was president of the Urban League. There was A. Philip Randolph, who unionized the Pullman Porters. I also knew John Lewis because we were a part of SNCC. It was a nonviolent organization that traveled throughout the South via the buses. So we had to make a statement by traveling where you were not allowed to sit in certain areas on the buses. So we did that for a while, not realizing John Lewis was ever going to become as famous as he would during as a congressional leader. But I got to know quite a few people, but from that point, I then graduated from the University of Washington, got my master's degree from the University of Washington. I then became more involved in the labor movement. I became the president of one of the Washington Federations of State Employees' largest unions, which was Local 1488, which had roughly about 6,000 members. From the labor movement, I became a member of the NAACP when I first arrived here, and that was back in 1966. I came from Vietnam in 1966 to Seattle. I was released at Fort Lewis, Washington, and I decided to stay here because I figured the opportunities, job opportunities, were greater here than it would be in the South. Now let me remind you of one thing in the South. When we would look for employment, we would look in the newspapers for employment, and they specifically stated for colored only, which meant those were your demeaning jobs. They were not jobs like accountant. They were like janitorial services, busboys, waiters, those kinds of jobs, which meant a lot of people that went to your black colleges in the South became teachers. The only jobs you really could get was either teaching, you could work for the post office, or a federal job. You couldn't get your basic jobs that you could, receive here, like in Seattle or other metropolitan cities. Those were some of the things that we really were fighting against. One of my proudest accomplishments, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, Gerald Hankerson was the president of the branch. I recall vividly that 9 people had been murdered in Charleston, South Carolina. I went to Gerald and I said, well, hey, look, I would like to do something regarding the 9 people that had been murdered by this young kid, Dylan Roof. And he says, go for it. I know myself and K.L. Shannon decided we were going to work on this project, and we put this project together. We put a march and a rally together in Martin Luther King Park. The rally started from First AME Church, and we had around 4,500 people marching with us. We also planted 1 big tree and 9 branches around the tree, symbolizing the 9 people that had been murdered. It is in the Martin Luther King Park with a plaque that is right next to the big tree with the names of the 9 individuals that had passed, along with the organizations that helped sponsor the marching rally. So that was one big feat that we put together. And if you go to the park today, you will see the tree, and you will see the 9 branches that are around the tree, and you see the plaque. And every Christmas, that tree is lit up during the Christmas holidays.